Shopping for gifts is a very different journey than shopping for yourself, and the target customer may be nothing like your gifting customer. That's why it's essential for retailers to understand the gift shopping journey, how promotions can help defend margins and reduce discounting. This session will help you maximize gifting revenues. I'm happy to introduce our speakers, Chip Overstreet, the CEO of Spiceology, Chip Malt, the CEO of Maiden, John Grech, the head of retail partnerships at GiftNow, and Deborah Weinswig, the founder and CEO of Coresight Research.
Well, thank you all for being here today. We have all kinds of conversations to have. I have never been on stage with one Chip, let alone two. So this will
or a John.
be, and a John.
This John.
So this will be quite interesting. So we, of course, have some slides to go through, thinking about just kind of the size of the gifting market. And I remember somebody telling me a few years ago that there's this idea that there were 16 different opportunities to give gifts every year. And if you think about that and how often it's like, the day before somebody's birthday, or it could be an anniversary or something like that, and we've all forgotten to make that purchase ahead of time, right? The opportunity to really kind of take care of, a loved one, a consumer, whatnot. And we believe that the growth in this market, and from the research that we've done recently, continues to grow and is above expectations. And really kind of, if we think about, for those of you who are here on the prior panel talking about the macro environment, what we've seen is that gift cards are actually counter-cyclical. And so that, right, the consumer can control their spending, as can the, kind of corporate buyer as well. And so if we look back at past recessionary environments, this is actually a very strong market. So this is, I think, really interesting. And when you start to think about the level of importance of, kind of making your customers feel great, making your employees feel great, and those around you. And I was sharing with John, right, I just sent a friend of mine an envelope, a card for her birthday, and I put a gift card in, and it was like, she's just like effusive in terms of how excited she was, because it was this idea that you did spend the time, it was tailored to that person. And if you look at the opportunity for this market to grow, we're still very much in its infancy. I mean, John, you and I were just talking about that, how it's still very much kind of undiscovered. And so I think that as we kind of move back to the opportunities and the growth going ahead, we believe that not only will we see more opportunities to give gifts, right? We think that there are more, if you will, not only holidays that people are observing in their companies, right? Whether it's kind of the day that your company was founded, opportunities for employees, celebrating, kind of corporate milestones, but that as you think about kind of those in your life who are critical, thinking about unique opportunities. And so with that, Chip and Chip, if we can, if you can talk about kind of from your companies, what you're seeing in gifting right now, what you're seeing in terms of how the consumer is engaging with, kind of gifting for others. And, I always think of the holidays as an opportunity for selling, giving gifts to oneself. And what are you seeing kind of across those three? So Chip, let's start down at the end.
What are we seeing across industry, did you say? For us, like, we've got a very giftable product. It is something that when people try the product, they fall in love and they want to share it. And we've got variety packs that give you the opportunity to try a bunch of different flavors. So for us, the holiday season is for consumers about 40% of our business, so people are gifting all year long, but the predominant time for gifting continues to be the holidays.
And Chip, what are you seeing in terms of, kind of how people are engaging, how they're thinking about gifting, and how has that changed, kind of from pre-pandemic times?
Yeah, for us, I think it's about taking note of the moments that are happening in the seasonal calendar for us. It's an interesting time to have this panel because we just came off Mother's Day, Father's Day, and now we're talking about a holiday 6 months in advance, and what could we have learned from those two holidays. I think we learned that people like their moms more than their dads, that Mother's Day was bigger than Father's Day by about 2x. But also, we spent a lot of time, it's been interesting being at this conference, hearing people concerned about Facebook or concerned about LTV to CAC, concerned about all that, right? And like eking out that incremental dollar. And this, as other Chip mentioned, is a really interesting way to get incremental LTV out of your best customers without having it be about themselves or without having them be as price sensitive, as a normal shopping day, right? And so for us, all the moments are really important. We will spend an exorbitant amount of time talking about Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and the December period, but you can't overlook these Mother's Days and Father's Days.
No, and I think that as we start to think about the opportunity from a holiday perspective, right, we're starting to see gifting move much earlier. Right, there had been supply chain challenges, but we at Coresight had started our own shopping festival called 1010, and we saw this tremendous interest, right, because people do want another opportunity to kind of make somebody feel great, make themselves feel great. John, we talked about, I think it was very interesting, the sustainability around gift cards. How do you think about that? Where are we? And do you think that the message is well considered?
I mean, first I look at it from a consumer perspective, and we need to acknowledge we actually really suck at gifting. Like, we don't get it right most of the time, sadly, right? And so that creates this sort of windfall of negative effect on everything. The product has to go to the person's house. They have to realize they don't want it. Eventually need to burn calories sending it back. That's not cheap. I got to do something when I get it. A lot of stuff that gets returned ends up in landfills. So like there's this huge web of this domino effect of getting it wrong. And so that's something that we see obviously in our platform around the ability to exchange the item before it ever ships in the first place and give the ability to kind of dial in what I actually want without just giving currency. But gift cards are a great gift too. Everyone spends money, right? And so the occasion, the relationship, the price point, all of these things go in to deciding whether I'm going for an item or for a gift card. And the reality is that the gift card is the one that you can always never get wrong. You might not be able to express what you really want, but you're not going to create that cycle of waste that we just talked about by getting it wrong with products. So, and that's becoming important for businesses as they start to think about their impact on everything.
Now we were just talking about the changes in SEC reporting and whatnot. I mean, this is really something that we're starting to see in more and more boardrooms. So, Chip, as your customers are coming to your website, how are you able to tell if they are looking at a gift, and hence are you serving up different content, or if they're shopping for themselves? And how do those journeys look, and what are you seeing in terms of AOV, et cetera?
Yeah, great question. I actually got schooled by Lauren Friedman about 6 months ago. She, I think most everybody knows Lauren. She, a longtime friend, called me up and she said, when people land on your site, you ask if they're a home cook, a griller, or a chef. I'm none of those. I'm gifting. Like, how do you satisfy my needs? So it was a great wake-up moment and a reminder that we all need to get more feedback from people about our sites. You get too close to it. But we're about to implement that so that somebody reports that they're looking for gifting. It's also a great way to remind people that this is a giftable product. I might be a home cook just looking for myself, but just seeing, are you a here for gifting is a great way to kind of drive people to that behavior. So don't have a good answer for it today, but very soon we'll be able to know more definitively if someone's there for gifting.
And Chip, how do you think about, right, because there is that moment where somebody is buying out of, kind of practicality or giving themselves a gift or giving somebody else, right? I mean, I look at those as easily 3 separate occasions. There's probably many more, but how do you think about the consumer intent and then what you serve up to them, and how do you also follow up with them after the sale?
Yeah, we do a ton of, obviously, basket card analysis and analysis over lifetime values and where people cross-sell, upsell, et cetera. And the interesting portion of that is, you look at someone's consumer journey, and we're in the cookware space. You buy a frying pan. You don't necessarily need another frying pan, so the question is, what will they buy next? Will they go into a tangential category or expand within that category itself, right? And what we see with gifting is that they'll actually buy the thing that they fell in love with, and so it's a repeat purchase of that exact same product back to them that they were so excited about that they want to gift to others. So completely different buying pattern, completely different consumer journey, messaging. You think about your CRM program and what you're messaging to people. Generally, it's about that incremental journey of pushing them down the funnel to a different product, and this is actually kind of a reversion back to reminding you why you love that initial product in itself.
I do want to take an opportunity about halfway through For those of you who stay for the entire session, you will get to experience GiftNow, and this is just one example from Spiceology, but you'll actually be able to utilize a QR code if you think about the simplicity around that, and you can choose your own gift. So this idea, right, that you get to choose your own adventure, right, and something that you really love, right, you'll be able to utilize that, and I just think it's a, when I started, kind of really digging deep into this industry, right, this opportunity around finding a product that is so kind of really personalized to oneself, and that you then, right, not only take better care of it, but you then share that with other people. I mean, John, this has kind of been your message from day one. How do you think about the difference between the corporate gifting market, and maybe you can help us understand that, and then kind of, the consumer gifting market?
They actually serve the same purpose, just with a different intent, I guess, right? Like, we use gifts to connect with each other at a personal and sort of emotional level. That same need exists in a corporate environment, but in a slightly different way of delivery. Where I think a lot goes wrong in corporate is this sort of one-size-fits-all need is really, it's hard to meet and also be really personal and also be memorable, because it's not about giving the item, it's about creating the moment. And so corporate, I think, has a lot of legs and opportunity for retailers. Most retailers don't participate in several $100 billion worth of commerce that happens outside of your typical channels. And that's sort of this off to the side market that doesn't get really well paid attention to. And so there's a lot of opportunity there just to find demand in a world where everyone's scraping for whatever they can get. There's actually a lot sitting out there if you go get it. And actually, in that environment, people enjoy items that they would buy in the store more than they do items with your logo on it, right? And so, and it gives the manager, for example, something meaningful to connect with their employees around. So yeah.
I mean, it's been really interesting, for the chips. The amount of inbounds we've seen at Coresight, right, where brands are interested in trying to figure out how they get to become part of this corporate gifting market. Because if you think about it, right, the pandemic changed our relationships with our coworkers, kind of our vendors, our suppliers, and whatnot. And one of the ways that they've been able to connect is through gifts, or just, right, kind of, and it can be something very much like, just thinking about you or whatnot, or going back to whether it's a, kind of celebrating a corporate, kind of hurdle or event, even an employee's birthday, et cetera. So how do you think about the kind of, if you will, C2C versus, B2C kind of aspect of this? And how do you, from a company perspective, is it just kind of one and the same, or do you have different strategies for both?
Well, they are completely different. The corporate gifting is a B2B sale. You need to have a human that reaches out and collaborates, and everybody has got their own ideas on what they want and how they want it. It's a considered purchase, and so it's just completely off track of the way you create a journey for a consumer or a chef that's coming to your site to buy for themselves. So it's B2B sale.
And so it's a different sale, and it's also a different market, but also just if you think about the growth and the opportunity, right? I mean, it's really exponential, in addition to everything that we're already saying, which is great. Chip, how do you look at it?
Yeah, I agree completely with John about creating a memorable experience. The product market fit of a consumer D2C product or B2C product might be completely different than the product market fit for a B2B product. There's supply chain things you have to think about, whether it's engraving or optionality between what makes that special for either the corporate gifter who's then going to gift someone else, or if you're giving your own employees something that they actually want to buy. So, I think we last session talked a lot about like the silver bullets, and I don't think gifting is a silver bullet unless you can actually create the supply chains and product market fit that you have spent so much time on the B2C side, on the B2B side as well.
That's very helpful. I mean, John, you and I talked a little bit about promotional strategies, right? And if somebody, let's say if, going back to the employee side, if they hit a hurdle, right, kind of giving them a gift card, and then even externally, right, as you're utilizing this to either get consumers to sign up for, it could be a credit card, it could be to pass a certain spending hurdle. How do you think about kind of, this idea around a gift card as a gift in and of itself in terms of, reaching a milestone?
As part of an incentive program of any kind, so just like in corporate environments, or think employer to employee, they're used for service rewards and other things. We do the same thing with loyalty programs already with our customers at large for given brand or retailer. I don't think, like a Chip, either one, have probably really thought about how they use their products to gift to their own customers in that sort of very personal way, right? Because it's not simple to do. And not just gift with purchase type executions, but how do you weave it into your regular cadence to begin to develop that relationship that's not transactional in nature, which is what it is today.
So you're wrong. We actually did that, and it supports your case though, so that's why I'm bringing it up.
We actually planned for this.
Yeah, exactly. No, so we've actually been embarking on a gifting program to our top RFM customers each month, Surprise and Delight, and we're doing a holdout group on each one of those to the same RFM kind of number, tracking them cohorts over, I guess, months and months, right? And like tracking them over the entire year and seeing if they adopt the category of products that we gift them, if they have higher LTVs than the holdout group, and also putting my personal email on those gifts so they can reach out and establish a relationship with the business. And so we've seen awesome results from that. I mean, we talk about rising CPMs and destruction of Facebook, which everyone loves because no one likes Facebook. And this is actually one of the cheapest ways we can continue to acquire and build LTV and build retention is through gifting. So we do spend a time on that, but to your point, it's super valuable.
It's actually really interesting. Chip, how do you think about when you're creating, kind of a giftable product or something that somebody thinks about, that aha moment, like, oh, this person would love this, or this speaks to them. How do you, what kind of research do you do, and kind of when you put your finger on it, what does that look like, and how often do you change it? I mean, just how do you think about it? I think it's a fascinating strategy, and as we're saying, right, it's counter-cyclical.
Yeah, well, one of the big areas of gifting for us is with our collaborations. You held up that gift set. That's the line that we just launched with the Bob Marley family. So we did a collaboration with Ziggy and Stella Marley, came up with 3 Caribbean-inspired blends. So if you have a friend or relative that's big into Marley, this is a great way for us to introduce our brand through somebody that's beloved. We've got a partnership with New Belgium, Fat Tire and Voodoo Ranger, or Chef Jet Teeler, Isaac Toop. So in every instance, we're betting on the fact that our brand is going to be introduced by some other entity that's already beloved. And if we can use that to get our product into people's mouths and they try it for the first time, that's a win. And so that's kind of how we think about our collaborations, which just ties directly into that whole gifting strategy.
I'm going to ask you a follow-up to that. When you come up with the idea of a collab, and something I've spent some time on back in my past, when you think about not only the product itself, but who to kind of collaborate with, I mean, those are 2 separate. Can you just dig into that a little bit more?
Well, we think about there's different kinds of influencers, and I don't like the word, but they are. We've got barbecue influencers, and we've got celebrity chefs, and we've got brands. So those are the 3 broad categories that we think about, and each one of those reaches a different audience. And so when, back in 2019, when we started down this path, we were very barbecue bro-centric. A lot of bearded bros with very, barbecue-centric things. And we made a deliberate decision that we've got to shift, and we've got to get more into the home cook market. And that's when we started partnering with celebrity chefs, and then the brands came along. And so it's just, it's kind of thinking backwards. Think who that target is that you're trying to reach, and then what's the best way to reach them in an authentic way. It's one of the nice things about the collaborations is it's not moms in white tennis shoes that are opening up your product on Instagram and saying, this would be perfect for my husband. It's like authentic. They're putting their name on the product with you. They're not just posting, they're doing videos, they're doing events. It's a much more real way of engaging across 2 different entities.
I mean, when you have a brand ambassador who really is, cares about your brand, and in many cases they're not being compensated, they do it because out of love. I mean, that's a huge opportunity. Chip, as you think about how consumers originally find your brand, and then kind of what happens over their life cycle, and how does gifting, from whether it's a surprise and delight from your end or how they start to give to others, how does that change over the life cycle of the customer?
Yeah, for us, I mean, one, you have to think about obviously who the intention of the purchase is for, right? And so, we have a huge retention team, a retention-focused team as well. So if there's a mismatch in shipping address to billing address, for instance, or if we're using a different program, being able to activate the actual intention of that receiver instead of sending a ton of emails to the mom or whatever it is, right, who's actually doing the gifting. So I think it takes a little bit of extra focus, and those, that is a free acquisition. We want that to have just as much LTV as any of the other core kind of acquisition efforts that we're doing. But again, it's a little bit of a slight difference in terms of attention and focus.
Great, and then John will close it out. As you think about holiday 22, what's on your mind? What advice do you have for the audience? And what do you think will be the key kind of differentiation points versus a year ago?
I think one of the biggest misses, and anyone that's heard me talk before, whether it be on a webinar or something like this, is that most brands that we've worked with or retailers, there's a little bit of a misalignment around who their gifting audience actually is. And they do really well at sort of targeting this core segment that they've developed over the course of however long they've been in business. And it's, women from 30 to this age that make this much money and live in these geos. And those aren't actually the people necessarily that are buying for themselves, right? Or they are for themselves, but the people that buy from them are actually very different. And so when you go into these peak seasons, Father's Day or Christmas or Mother's Day, the person completing the transaction is actually not the core customer that you're so good at finding and attracting and motivating to come to the site. They also care about different things in the journey, right? The way they think about navigation is not about the technical specs of the item. It's about, are they going to like it? And, is it fuzzy and slippery, make them comfortable if it's a piece of apparel or. There's just different considerations for the purchase. There's different reasons they don't buy. It's not free shipping. It's, I'm not sure of the size. That's actually why I'm not buying. So we're spending tons of money retargeting them with a free shipping offer that is completely irrelevant to the gift buyer versus the self-shopper. So there's just a different set of considerations around the purchase that often get missed or underrepresented in the QA. It's actually, we study this every day, all day for a decade, right? And it's really hard to put a testing team together and say, imagine you're buying a gift for your uncle. Like, go pick something out. It's like, guess what? When you're in this imaginary state, anything on the website is perfect. I just get to check the box that I put something in the cart, right? That's not true. It's really hard to figure out what you're getting for dad last weekend, and it takes time. And so that path meanders different. Where you find those people, we work with a lot of female sort of targeted brands. Well, maybe we should look for male audiences during Valentine's Day, and they do not hang out in the same places that our female audience typically does. So, maybe ESPN and pre-roll is actually a good place to go find people to buy an expensive handbag 3 days before Valentine's Day, as an example. And so you add up all of these different sort of parts of the funnel and the journey and the discovery and the confidence building to pull the trigger. That's kind of what we've seen is they need an insurance policy too of, oops, if I got it wrong, which is probably going to happen most of the time, it's really simple for whatever to happen next to happen. So communicate that. Don't be scared to say, we have longer return policies, or we're going to allow you to ship it back for free, and it's not going to be an errand for her, or. So look through the different lens. Think about who the real buyer is. It's not your typical customer normally, and make it really simple to get it wrong, because most people do.
All right, we need your holiday, just any, you can opine on any conclusion as you think ahead to holiday 22.
I think people are going to buy sooner in the shopping season. Like, the shopping season is going to be longer this year based on the bruises from last year. We have amnesia, but it's not that bad, I guess. And I still think we're going to run into a clog at the end around trying to get packages and driveways on time to be under the tree. So.
Great. So you heard it here. We heard about sustainability of gift cards, right? Really imagining who the end consumer is. Kind of going in with a gifting strategy in terms of as you think about what you're offering on your website. And a lot of this is data driven, but once again, having this opportunity to really think about what's critical to your consumer and to their shopping journey. And I love the surprise and delight, right? Rewarding your consumer for being your consumer doesn't get any better than that. So I want to thank Chip, and John. Thanks to the audience, and enjoy your spices.
Thank you.